Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. And today we are going over the brushes that I purchased and featured in 2021. So kind of like, I wouldn't say necessarily just a best of, but kind of an overview, am I still using those? Which ones do I love the most? All of that kind of thing all together. So we're going to start off with the Sony G Nichi Pro. Now, this brush just recently came out and it is currently out of stock, but it will be restocked. It is a permanent brush. So this will now be part of the Pro line. You can see you've got her Pro handles, the tapered handle here. And this actually, these are the shortest hairs here, and then they gradually get longer, and you can see you have a little bit of a dome top. Same thing happens on the sides. So Nichi actually means rainbow brush because of, you see you've got this like rainbow brush shape here. So this is a fantastic brush. I absolutely love this brush. I do have a separate video on this brush if you are interested in looking at this. And it is incredibly soft, yet still dense, and it is intended for bronzer. Now, can you use this for other things? Yes, you can use it for blush, powder, things like that, but honestly, it is ideal for bronzer, and that's pretty much all I use it for. But this is definitely a brush that I would consider a worthy investment. So I would definitely say if you haven't picked this up yet, if you are looking for a bronzer brush, when this comes back in stock, it's something to consider. So perhaps add it to your wish list. Next up, we have the Sony G Buffer Pro. Now, this isn't exactly new. The Buffer Pro version is new, but it is supposed to be a duplicate of the Phase 1. Here's the original Phase 1. You've got the barrel handle. Now, this is a permanent brush, and it's part of the Pro line, so it does have the Pro Series tapered red handle. And I have to say, this one I have used, so it has bloomed a little bit because I've used it recently. This one is freshly dried, but you can see here that they aren't exactly the same. So actually looking at these, and then if you compare the smooth buffer, let's put these in order here. So we have Phase 1, Buffer Pro, and the smooth buffer. You can see that the new Buffer Pro, at least for me, it is slightly smaller. Head-wise, the lengths of the hairs are the same, but the diameter that it fluffs out is smaller, and I can actually notice that when using it. So I'm not sure if the density is the same, but there have been hair shortages and, material supply chain issues and things like that. So it's possible that the density is the same, but the hairs, because they are slightly different, it is going to make a little bit of a difference. So these feel just slightly finer than my Phase 1 ones. So it doesn't fluff out exactly the same, but you can see that it's close. So I would say that the smooth buffer, you can see, is definitely smaller. I use this for blush, but I do think that this is slightly smaller than my original Phase 1. So just something to note, but I do think that this style of brush is a must-have in anyone's collection, whether you go with one of these brushes or a different brand. The style itself is fantastic, and honestly, I love these. So I actually prefer my original Phase 1 over the new Buffer Pro. But if you don't have this one, I would definitely recommend being able to get this because it's fantastic for buffing in like finishing powders like meteorites and things like that. The smooth buffer, if you don't want to invest in a separate buffer brush, this is fantastic for buffing in blush. And you can also do it with like base powder, meteorites, and so forth. The only issue is it just takes a little longer because it's a smaller brush. So I would definitely recommend picking up either both of these, but if you had to pick between them, go with the smooth buffer because it's a little bit more versatile being of a smaller size. And next up, we're going to talk about the Sony G Lotus Series. Now, this is a limited edition set that is supposedly not going to be coming back, but who knows, in the future that might change. Regardless as to whether or not this set comes back, some of these shapes might. So I just want to highlight a few of these. This is not the complete set here in my hands. This brush here is the base brush, and this really, I think, was kind of the star of the set because you have a different style. This is meant for foundation and base products, and it is a blend of undyed and synthetic fibers. So you've got two different types of synthetic fibers as well as undyed goat hair in here to make it ideal for use with creams. It's very, very soft, and it works really well. So when I originally picked this up, I wasn't sure if I would like using this for base products, and I got it. I really enjoyed it, and I still like it, but I have kind of gravitated back towards my more traditional base shapes, some of the rounder styles. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like this one though, when I use a more sheer, a thinner, more serum-y type foundation, I gravitate towards this. But now that it's winter and I'm using like more of a heavier foundation, typically something a little bit more medium, I've been reaching more for the rounder brushes. So just something to note there, but I do think this is an interesting shape. And if this brush or one like it comes out again, I think it's definitely worth looking into. Now, some of the brushes in this set were repeat shapes. And one of the ones that I wanted to highlight is actually the cheek brush from the Lotus set. This is an undyed goat hair version of the Cheek Pro, which I love this. I think it's one of the most versatile cheek brushes, and having an undyed version for me is fantastic because I love being able to use these with, cream products. So, I think this was fantastic. I really like this. So I think that was a win. Those were really, for me, the two standouts from the Lotus series. Now, moving on to the Fusion series. This is the set from Sony G that is all of the brushes are a mix of two synthetic fibers plus undyed goat hair. So they are meant to be used with creams and liquids and powders, everything. And I think this is probably one of her best sets just because it is so incredibly functional. And this is not the entire set. The set will be restocking, and they're supposed to be restocking soon. These brushes are also sold individually. And I have to say, I use these brushes all the time. I use her concealer brushes all of the time. The jumbo concealer, we've got the soft concealer. We have the mini base brush that was in the Kiyaki set, now with a longer handle. I use all of these brushes for base products all of the time. This one here, the jumbo base, this one is definitely one of my favorites. I actually used it today, but you can see here that it's tapered. It starts going up in size here, curves over, and you can see that this side is more angled, whereas this side is more vertical here, more straight. So we don't have the same gradation on both sides. And I think this is a fantastic all-around brush. I use this for cream bronzers and contour products, foundations, cream blushes. I think this is fantastic. And again, I use all of the concealer brushes. I actually have a few of them being washed right now, and I love them all. But this would definitely be my favorite brush from the set. And then I use the jumbo concealer a lot. The mini base, honestly, I use the whole set a lot. So I would recommend the entire set. But again, the jumbo base is my absolute favorite. Moving on to a standalone brush, this is the Hermes blush brush. This was pretty controversial when it came out because it is an expensive brush. You're paying for the handle, you're paying for the name. And when I say the handle, I'm not saying the quality of the wood in this handle is anything spectacular. It's really more just the painted design from Hermes. This is made in France, so it's not a fude brush. And, it is goat hair. This one is. There's another blush brush, like a mini version that is synthetic. This one here is goat. It's not the softest, but you know what? It actually picks up product really well and disperses it really well. So, you're paying for the name. If you're okay with that, then I think it's worth it. And if you're looking for something that just performs really well at the best price, this is not going to fit in that category. But I'm personally happy with this brush because I think it performs well. It's not one that I use every day because it is a little bit, it's not quite as soft. And I do like to use the softer brushes, but this brush works really well for me for blushes that are a little bit firmer in the pan, a little bit harder to pick up. I think it picks those up and disperses them really well. And, I think because it is a goat hair brush, you know, all of the brushes are slightly different. There probably are some that are softer versus rougher than others. Mine's actually not that bad. So mine's not that soft, not that rough, sorry. So I do think if you can find this in person, test it out, that's great. If you can get it on sale, you know, Hermes products do go on sale through the department stores. So I think that is a great way to look at it if it's something you're interested in. But for me, I'm happy with this brush personally. Now, some recent brushes from Refer. I wanted to mention the brushes that came out for the holidays, and I use all three of these all the time. I have to say, I do have quite a few brushes like this. This is 30. It's a very large, fluffy powder brush. I use this for dusting loose setting powder, but honestly, I do have a lot of brushes like this in this style already. So it's not one of my, I wouldn't say it's most used. I kind of rotate amongst all of those similar brushes. But these two here are true standouts for me for the year. I absolutely love them. I have two of them now. So that we have 31, which is a foundation brush. And you can see here that you have, it's more of a stippling style. And it does have a slight angle here and it's very dense. This has become like one of my all-time favorite foundation brushes. I use this all the time. And yeah, I can't recommend this enough. The 32 is actually meant to be used for eyeshadow, but I also use it for under eye concealer. And I am hoping that they bring out a brush size slightly bigger than this. That would be a little bit more ideal for concealer. But I think that this shape is just very versatile. I also do use this, again, I have two of them now, so I use it for outer corner work on the eyes as well. But I just think that these particular brushes are true standouts from the year. I highly, highly recommend these two. So this is 31 and 32 from Refer. And then I also wanted to bring up these three brushes from Refer. I'm not sure if these were 2020 or 2021. I don't recall. But we have brush 27, 28, and 29. And I have to say, I really love these three as well. You know, I think 29 fits a great, you know, it's like one of those brushes that you can fill into your collection, but you're not necessarily going to use all the time. That's how it is for me. But you can see it's really tiny. And I use this actually for lips and eyeliner. And, but it's one that I don't use all the time because it's not like there's another brush I use in place of it. It's just not one that fills a need that I have all the time for my makeup. It's a great detail brush. Now 28, you can see is more of this soft shader style. I personally love soft shader style brushes. This is one I use a ton, especially with metallics and cream products. So it's really just very functional. And 27 has become one of my favorite crease brushes because of this shape here. I love the taper on here. Most of Refer's crease brushes, let me find one here. Well, here's a smaller one, but you can see most of them are more like domed or flat at the top versus this taper. And this taper really is what sets this one apart for me because it allows me to get into that inner portion, you know, the actual crease a little bit easier, but yet I have stuff on the sides that kind of can help buff it out depending on how much pressure I apply to the eye, you know, will determine how many bristles are actually in contact there. Now, as I'm getting older and my lids are becoming a little bit more hooded due to age, you know, this actual taper here is becoming more and more important to me. So this has become one of my favorite crease brushes of all. So I use this all the time. I use the 28 all the time. The 29 filled a void in my collection, but again, it's one that I only have an occasional use for. And next, let's talk about SUQQU, Kairedo, and Fude Japan brushes. So the SUQQU squirrel brushes are no longer. They are no longer produced. They have officially been replaced by synthetic brushes in Japan that has been trickling out to the other countries now as well. And, you know, if you were able to get the SUQQU squirrel hair brushes, great. I think they are a fantastic set. I have you know, all of the ones I was interested in. I didn't buy all of the brushes, like the brow brushes and things like that, but this one here is the cheek brush, and it's incredibly soft. I like the shape, the size, it's fantastic. Now, SUQQU brushes are made by Kairedo, which is a brand in Japan, and Fude Japan, if you have ordered from him, he has actually worked with Kairedo to create replica brushes. So these are of different price points. We've got the Kairedo here and the Fude Japan, and you can see that both of these have more of a sparkle in the handle. The Fude Japan, you can see you've got the label there. The Kairedo, where does it say it? It might not even say it on here. But anyway, these brushes are very, very similar to the SUQQU. They're not 100% the same. I'd say like really close, like 98, 99% though. And I think, you know, they're a great alternative. Now, I do have like the L-shaped brushes and so forth from these lines as well. By the way, Fude Japan, they have these sparkly handles on some of the brushes, but they are starting to move over to a more matte handle, or rather without any sparkle. So just something to note, that is something to look at depending on what you're interested in. So I think these are all fantastic brushes. I would definitely recommend the SUQQU Squirrel brushes or any of the alternatives. I think both the Kairedo Kiwami brushes, which again, they don't have replicas in all of these. They have the cheek brush and the large eyeshadow brush, which is similar to the L brush from SUQQU. And then Fude Japan has a set of brushes that actually does have replicas of the, I would say the majority of the SUQQU squirrel hair brushes. So definitely great things to look at. I would recommend all of them. I'm only going to show the cheek brushes right now, but you can see how similar they are. And they all feel equally as soft. And yeah, I just think they are fantastic. So they're definitely brushes I would recommend. Next, we have Ray Morris. Now, I picked up quite a few Ray Morris brushes, and I have to say I do like them. They have switched from natural hair to synthetic, and the majority of my brushes here are natural hair. But I have to say that the standout feature is actually this frame. This is a metal frame. Ray Morris brushes do have a magnet in them. I think the frame is fantastic. And one of our Clubhouse discussions, we had a Clubhouse discussion with Tom from Raffer. And, you know, if you're interested, you can listen to the replay on Clubhouse. But one of the things that he mentioned that they're looking at doing is perhaps adding magnets to some of their brushes. And I think that this frame is such a fantastic piece. So I hope they do incorporate something like this into their collection as well. There are a few standouts to me in this. And this brush here, you know, they're like kabuki style brush here. I absolutely love this. It's dense. It's fantastic for powder foundation or powders in general. I really love that one. I actually really like the shape of this cheek brush. There are other similar ones as well. And you can see that their 21 brush is a similar style to the Sony G Face 1 or Buffer Pro. And so those are some great brushes, but honestly, the one that I use the most is this one here, which is number 28. And I really like that. I do have the natural hair version though. But again, if you're looking at something from Ray Morris, I really think this frame is the standout piece. And yeah, that's how I feel about these. Next, moving on to Omnia or Royal and Langnickel. So they actually sent me some of their gold line brushes originally, and these are natural hair, and I really enjoyed that. So they did send me some synthetic brushes as well, and I haven't really done like a specific video or anything on those, but there are some that I use all the time. So I wanted to mention a few favorites that I have with those. The first one here, and you can see I have been using this. This is the BOM 510. This is just the brow brush, but I use this every single day. You've got the angle brush end that you can use for like powder and so forth, but I really like the spoolie on this. You know, it's sturdy and it's just like the right size and shape and density for me. So I use this every single day, and it is my favorite brow brush, to be honest. Then I have a couple of other brushes that I use. This is the BOM 405 and this is the BOM 601. And I have to say, you can see this looks like it might be fluffier. These are both synthetic, by the way, but you can see how firm these are. This is what I use for cream products all the time. So I think this one is great to kind of blend out a cream product. So kind of apply it on there and then brush it out. If I'm using one of those like creamy eye pencils that I want to brush out, this has a good density for that as well. So I use it for that. And then you can see this has that nice arrowhead shape. And I use this to get in the inner corner, and I also use the angles on the side for liner. So these two I use a ton for cream products. Now I have to say I do use a lot of the gold brushes, the natural hair ones, quite a bit. So let me show you my favorites from there. We have the BOM 36 powder brush. I actually use this for blush, but I think it's a really nice blush brush. I love Sony G and HODO blush brushes. I use them a lot, but sometimes I want something a little bit bigger and I don't want to go quite as big as a true powder brush. This is kind of in between those sizes. And I think if you're looking for a big blush brush, this is a really great one. So I really like this one. Now, two other blush brushes that I like, we have this one here, which is BOM 38. It's a complexion brush. And then this one is BOM 34, the domed brush. And I like this for blush. You can see that the density is a little bit, it's a little bit more dense than some other blush brushes, which I think makes it a little bit easier to buff out a few. And this one is a little bit smaller. I actually use this for highlight. You can see it's got a little bit of a taper. It's not like a large taper, but I do like to very gently put on highlight with this one, but it works well for blush and things as well. Another brush that I really like is this fan brush, which is the BOM 39. And one of my favorite fan brushes is the Rephr 20. This is probably my favorite fan brush of all. This is fairly similar, but you can see that it is just slightly a little bit wider. And I really like the density on these two brushes for applying, highlight that is a little bit too shimmery for me. If I want to tone down highlight and I just want a very light wash, then I like these particular fan brushes for it. And a couple of eyeshadow brushes that I really gravitate from here. We have the BOM 40, which is called the shader, and the BOM 43, which is the blending. This one here you can see is longer, and I really like this to lay down like a powdery shadow and softly blend that out. And you can see you've got the arrowhead shape, which makes it ideal to go in the inner corner or the outer corner. And this one here is a little bit more dense. I use this for like one and done shades. And you can see because of this, I can go into the crease and buff that out. But it's a larger brush, so I don't use this for detail. This is really for one and done for me. So those are kind of the ones from the gold collection that I'm using still quite a bit. Next, we have the Katie Jane Hughes and Spectrum collection brushes. Now this came, you can see this is like the lid. There's a base as well, which is what I actually have my Omnia gold brushes in. So it came with a set together like this, and I really like the container. I find it very functional. It's great to travel with. It snaps close and everything. I like the concept of all of these brushes, but I have to say I don't really use them very often. They are just a little bit, they're really great for liquids and creams if you want something that has a lot of movement. I personally, obviously I'm not a makeup artist. I don't have as much skill as somebody like Katie Jane Hughes. So for me, something that has all of this movement in the bristles, it's a little bit harder for me to get the color exactly where I want to, whether I'm using powders or creams. So I end up not really using these very often. The brushes from here that I do use are when I want to do something with like a liquid liner or a cream shadow, I tend to use her eye brushes more. So this one here, the number 7, you can see it's kind of similar. It's a little smaller than the Omnia gold one I just showed you, but the density is similar. So I'll use this if I'm using like a cream shadow product and I want to smudge it out. This is one that I'll use, especially if I'm smudging something along the lash line. This works well if you're using something like one of the Sisley eye crayons or something, you want to smudge that out. I'll use this number 7 brush, and I'll occasionally use some of her other eyeshadow brushes. This one here is the 15 for cream products, but for powders, honestly, I just prefer my like goat hair brushes. And then I'm looking to see, she has some, oh, here it is. This, when I'm trying to make a shadow into a liquid liner, this 22 brush I use all the time. So I do reach for her 22 a lot because I think this is a good size and shape. You can see she has some other styles in here. This is the 24. It's a little bit longer and wispier, but for my personal style, I end up using this one more than the others. So those are kind of the ones I use from the Katie Jane Hughes, but honestly, I don't really reach for her brushes very much. And I'm sad to say that because I love her as an artist and I wish I had her skill. But yeah, I don't really use her brushes much. Now, I'm not going to talk about this whole set. This is a HODO KZ set. This is the Kazan Swirl brushes. It's called the Hamari set, and I love it. I have the whole set. I purchased them actually 2020, but I have picked up a couple of duplicates during 2021 because these brushes have been discontinued. So you can still, you know, a couple of the brushes still pop up periodically as they're running through the stock that has, you know, that's still remaining in Japan, but these brushes are no longer. However, they are my favorite brush series like ever. They're the softest. I wouldn't say they're a workhorse series that you're necessarily going to use every day because they are very soft. So they pick up very well for a soft brush, but you know, there are limitations to these as well. So I don't want to dwell on this, but if you do happen to see a KZ brush and you're wondering if it's a good investment, it definitely is. They are fantastic. I use my KZ3 all the time, the KZ4, you know, they are just really, really great brushes. And by the way, the KZ6 eyeshadow brush is my favorite one and done eyeshadow brush. If you come across that one, it is incredible. And this is what it looks like. So it's just, you know, the shape is nothing unique, but the way the size of everything works with this bristle type just makes it absolutely perfect for me for one and done. It's soft, easy to use. I can use it in the crease, you know, it's just fantastic. And next up we have brushes from Labouche Rouge. I actually have another one from them as well, but I have to say this one I use quite a bit. This is the stippling style brush, and I forget what they call this. It doesn't have a name on the handle, but you know, I like the shape of them. They are similar to like SUQQU brushes. You've got kind of this stippling. These are synthetic. They are expensive for synthetic brushes. I think they're nice. They're not a must-have, but I have to say I do use this one. You know, I'll usually use this actually for blush, but I've used it with foundation and things like that before as well. It's not quite as dense as I like for something like that, but I do like to use this one for blush. So I use that. And then I do reach for these eyeshadow brushes from Labouche Rouge periodically. Again, they are synthetic and they're very soft. I think they work fine with powder, but again, powder products, I typically do reach more for my natural hair brushes. So I do tend to reach for these more with cream products. I like the density of this shorter one a lot. This one works great in the crease, but I probably use this one the most. And next up we have some brushes that I picked up from HODO. And this was my first HODO purchase. This one here, I'll put the name on the screen because I forget what it is, but I really like this one. You can see that it is soft. It's a blend of fibers and squirrel and goat. I like this this works for bronzer and blush, and that's primarily what I like to use this for. I think it's really soft. This is one that I have been using a lot since I picked that up. And then I picked up a bunch of other brushes. I have to say, out of the ones that I use a lot, that would be this one here, the B004G, just another soft shader style, great for liquids and creams. I do really like all of the ones that I picked up, so no issues with any of these. This one here, cute little brush. Honestly, I don't use it very much though, but I do like the eye brushes a lot. I like this because I think it's different and unique, but I just don't really use it that much. And then at the beginning of the year, we had two Lunar New Year brushes that came out. We had the Kyoto Akabeko brush, which came out at Beautylish. I think this is one of the best brushes. I love the size and shape of this. It's angled, it's squirrel, and it's very, very, very soft. It's one of my favorite bronzer brushes. I don't use a ton of bronzer and I like it. I don't like to look too super bronzed because it just doesn't work with my complexion. I'm not somebody who tans. So I think this is perfect, but I also use this for blush as well. And it's one of my most used brushes this year. So it has been restocking periodically throughout the year. I highly recommend it. And I think it's a really good value as well. This is the Lunar New Year brush that came out from Beautylish. You know, they are Oxen, and I think it's a really nice powder brush. I'm pretty sure this is one that came out this year. So you've got these little oxen, you know, kind of like when I first saw them, they reminded me of pigs. Just because the color here is not what I would expect to see on an ox, but you can see you got the cute little horns, you got the little tail here. I think the actual brush handle is gorgeous. Again, the shape is nothing special. It's something that, you know, we've seen a lot with these brushes, but I personally really love this. So I'm happy with this and I will be picking up the one for this year. This year we have the Year of the Tiger coming, or 2022. And it has a red handle and a cute little tiger. So, you know, definitely interested in seeing that. And you can sign up on Beautylish's website now to be notified when that one launches. And they usually do sell out pretty quickly. And if I recall correctly, they're typically about $125 each year. I don't know about the pricing for this year's, but it looks like it's undyed goat hair, which excites me. So I'm very, very interested in seeing that and trying that one out. So that sums up kind of my brush overview for the year. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to know what brushes you've been reaching for. Obviously, I have other brushes I'm using all the time that I purchased prior to 2022. And I do have, you know, plenty of brush videos. I'll leave the playlist linked down below if you want to go through any of those. But yeah, these are definitely new ones that I've added to my collection that, you know, have become go-to brushes for me during the year. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy. I'll see you very soon. Happy holidays.